to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a 9-person volunteer board nominated by the mayor and approved by City Council. First, we will hear from Planning Services, represented tonight by John Barrett. Then the applicant or their representative will make their presentation. Applicants will have 5 minutes in which to make their presentation. Staff will keep time and announce when 30 seconds are remaining. We may ask questions of either the city or the applicant. We will acknowledge any written comments received by the board. We will allow an appearing party to express their support or objections. To speak during public comment opportunities, you will be able to speak through the webinar link or by phone, depending on your method of access to this meeting and available devices. Both the phone number and web link are available on the published agenda in the public notices section of the city website. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 938-1648-1007. You need not have signed up in advance. In order to be called on to speak, callers must press *9 if listening by phone or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 938-1648-1007. Callers will then be called upon by city staff one by one using the last 3 digits of their phone number or by name if available for those accessing through the web link. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds so that we may hear you clearly. Please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. City staff will announce when callers have 30 seconds left of their 3-minute comment period. After 3 minutes, they will be placed on mute so that we can proceed to the next speaker. The board will then discuss the appeal and formulate a motion to approve the appeal. 5 affirmative votes of the board will be required for an appeal to be granted. Finally, any qualified party who is aggrieved by a decision of the board can appeal that decision to the Washtenaw County Circuit Court on a timely basis. Moving on to roll call, I am here. Mike Daniel.
Here in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mike. Again, please state the city, county, township, or village, and the state that you're attending the meeting from. So I am in the city of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Mike is here. Dave DeVarty.
DeVarty here in the city of Ann Arbor.
Chris Fraley.
I'm here in the city of Ann Arbor.
Nicole Eisenman. Todd Grant.
Here in the city of Ann Arbor.
Elizabeth Nelson.
Here in the city of Ann Arbor.
Charlotte Wilson.
Here in the city of Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Julia Good.
Here in the city of Ann Arbor.
All right, we have a quorum. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Are there any comments on the agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Charlotte. Support? Support from Elizabeth. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the October 27th, 2021 ZBA meeting. Are there any comments or questions or corrections to those October minutes? If not, do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you, Chris. Support?
Support.
From Charlotte. Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, the minutes are approved. Moving on to public hearings. First, we have petition ZBA 21-036, 1807 Pontiac Street. John?
I'm John Barrett, zoning coordinator for the city of Ann Arbor. Louisa Abbott, property owner, is requesting relief from section 5.32.2, alteration to a non-conforming structure, in order to allow a second-story addition to remain in the current configuration. The home is non-conforming as it does not meet the average front setback by approximately 2 feet. The second-story addition is incomplete as construction of stairs, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom have not yet been completed. The property is zoned R1C, Single Family Residential. The subject property is located on the west side of Pontiac Street and south of Barton Drive. Northside Elementary School is directly across the street from the subject property. The home was built in 1947 and is approximately 1,490 square feet in size. The home was a single story until the second story addition was added in 2012. Once the addition is completed, it will add 2 bedrooms and a bathroom to the overall size of the structure. The new addition does not change the footprint of the residence. The home is non-conforming as it does not meet the requirements of section 5.18.5, averaging an existing front building line by approximately 2 feet. I'm going to share my screen right now with the PowerPoint. Can you see that, the PowerPoint now?
Yep.
Does it need to be enlarged? Does it need to be enlarged?
No, I think you're good, John.
Okay, all right. The first slide for 1807 Pontiac Street is the zoning map. You see the highlighted subject parcel in the center. The next slide is the neighborhood and current conditions map. You see the existing subject property in the center, and you see the Northside Elementary School across the street. The next slide is the zoomed in aerial photo of the subject property. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. The next slide is the roof plan and shows the second story that has not yet been completed, but the applicant submitted these floor plans showing the proposed floor plan when it is finally completed. The next slide are showing the elevations of the subject property and a building cross section, the basement, first floor, and second story. The next slide are the photos that were submitted by the applicant. And these are the photos that I took upon my inspection. You see the front of the dwelling. And this is taken from the east elevation. You see the addition and its current, and it's the property in its current state. And this is from the rear and showing the cross section of the 3 stories, the basement, the first and the second story. I can take any questions at this time.
Thank you, John. Any questions? Dave, go ahead.
John, what is for this zoning, forget the averaging, what would the setback be without the averaging?
25 feet, zoned R1C single family.
And right now it exceeds that, doesn't it?
Yes, it's at, my laser measurement was at 30 feet, 6 inches approximately.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Thank you.
Mike, did you have a question?
Yeah. Yes, thanks. So I'm just confirming they started this, made a bunch of progress. Then something happened where they realized they had to come get permission and they've stopped and it's not complete. Is that what's happened here?
That's a pretty good assessment. Yes. A lot of this, the construction took place prior to my arrival with the city. I started in 2015. I was made aware of it approximately a year ago. Permits were not obtained for the second story. The applicants or the property owners are in the process of getting those through the building department right now. But this is the first step in that process. They can't get the permits until approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals is obtained.
And if we don't give approval, they have to basically reverse all of this. That's the law. That's the rule.
That's correct.
at their own expense, obviously. All right. Yep. Got it. Thanks.
Any other questions for John? Chris?
So the front of the house encroaches on the front setback. Is that what I hear? But it's
Yeah,
by 16 inches.
it doesn't meet the average front setback. That's correct.
Okay.
It-
I want to
there- this-
also remove the averaging part because I believe the front of the house was there. Was it rezoned at some point? And now the front of the house isn't in the right, is in violation of that, or was it built out past that point where it should have been?
The home was established prior to the requirements of the average front setback, but all new construction has to meet current code. So in order to do a second story, since it's non-conforming, doesn't meet that average front setback, you'd have to get permission to alter since it's in front, this property's front facade is more forward than the average of the adjacent properties.
But that's not what they're changing. The footprint's not changing.
The footprint's not changing, but it's going straight up. And so that front facade doesn't meet that average front setback by 2 feet. We've had a couple similar cases this year with this same situation. Anytime when you don't meet the average front setback and you want to put a second story on, you're altering a non-conforming structure because you don't meet that average. You're not encroaching any further, but you're altering it because you're going straight up. So they don't need a variance, they just need this alteration.
Which is less stringent requirements.
Correct. It's not quite as not as many findings of facts need to be met.
Right.
Todd, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, I understand why a homeowner could understand they wouldn't need to apply for a zoning variance. I find it hard to believe that a homeowner in a city like Ann Arbor would think they could build a second story and not need any building permits. That's a little uncool, but it's not something that we weigh, but it really is not cool behavior. The zoning variance, I understand because it's fairly technical, but they should have been applying for building permits. Not our purview, but I just make that as an observation.
I know I've worked and I've talked with the building official and we're trying our best to rectify that situation.
There are a lot of houses in the city. So.
Any other questions for John?
I've got
Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
how did this come to the attention of our zoning department, planning department?
It came in as a concern to the building department and was brought to my attention at that point.
Was the concern raised by a neighbor?
I believe so. I am not sure. I think it was an anonymous concern by a surrounding property.
Okay.
I honestly don't know all the details of that. I was just made aware of it within the department.
Did we receive any written communications on this application?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, if the petitioner is ready, you may begin your presentation. You will have 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hello.
Hi,
This
we
is-
can hear you. Yep.
Yeah. There was a letter submitted unsolicited by us from a neighbor in favor of approving the appeal. We also talked to other surrounding neighbors during this process, and none of the neighbors surrounding us that we talked to had any issue with the property as it stands.
Did you have any other comments? you
Oh, do I
wanted
have
to
any
add?
questions? No, I do not.
Okay. Any questions for the petitioner? All right. If there is anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, please call in now and press *9. If you are connected via the Zoom link, please raise your hand and staff will call on you. I will note while we're waiting that we did receive a letter of support from Johanna Stovall at 1717 Pontiac Trail.
There are no callers.
Thank you, Kristen. We are in discussion. Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I joined Todd that I think it's absurd that they wouldn't have tried to get building permits before doing this, but that's not our purview, like Todd said. On the zoning piece, you know, it's a alteration to a non-conforming, applying that standard without any objections from the neighbors and where this property is. And it does look like if it's following all of our code and gets its permits issued by our building department, from a zoning, you know, from our purview, I don't have a problem with this, so I'm gonna vote for it. Although I do want to be on the record that I can't believe they didn't ask for permission ahead of time.
Dave.
I just want to put on the record that this is not going closer to the front or into the front setback for this zoning. It's just this averaging thing that causes this to come to us as a non-conforming to the zoning code. There's no change in the footprint. We've approved many like this through the past several years that I've been on the zoning board. I'm going to vote for this. I'm comfortable if they pull the permits. The building permits need to be inspected and signed off on by our inspectors. So I feel assured that our inspectors will make sure that it's built to code, and I will vote for this.
Chris.
I'm in support of it. I agree with Dave, and I believe the next door neighbor's piece of property or the house sits even closer. So they're not, I mean, they're sitting within the realm of reality. It's not as though they're pushing up against the sidewalk. And yeah, I don't have a whole lot of problem with what's going on here. Thank you.
Julia.
I kind of want to second what Mike said. I do feel concerned that this is, in the year I've been on the ZBA, it's maybe the third or fourth where construction has started without a permit being pulled. And this is the city of Ann Arbor. That, like, I can't imagine there's a builder who doesn't know that they have to pull permits. Like, that just seems, I feel like we should recommend as a board or something that there's some penalty for when this happens. Because the project itself is perfectly fine. I mean, it seems like everybody seems to be agreeing so far that we should grant the alteration.
Todd.
Yeah, picking up on what Julie is saying and assuming Ms. Abbott is still listening, you want to, if you ever have to sell the property, you want to be able to tell people that the project was done, one, according to the code, and two, it was inspected by the city inspectors. You really don't want to be in the position, even assuming you did everything right, that you didn't have it inspected. That's going to cause concern in a buyer. And many people, of course, think that they can do all this stuff themselves. And some people can do it to the level of a professional, but I know for sure that I cannot. And other people are probably somewhat self-deluded. So it's a big advantage to say that it was built according to code and it was inspected. It's sort of a no-brainer.
Elizabeth.
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to echo Julia's point that this is like the third or fourth situation like this that we've talked about. This is probably the longest we've ever talked about the fact that it was unpermitted. I remember the most recent one, there was a professional builder involved, that there was significant work done before a permit was pulled. And I mean, that's the challenge as well. I think that's almost a bigger challenge because I have had work done by a contractor and I know that we relied on his assurances that permits were pulled. And so to the extent that anybody is relying on a third party to jump through those hoops and dot all the i's and cross the t's, there are those situations as well. So
Dave,
I'd like to add something I meant to say before. We have very few standards that we need to meet for an alteration to a non-conforming structure. But one is that the chapter said, the requirements of the chapter, that it meets the requirements and that it won't have a detrimental effect on neighboring property. I find that it won't. If anything, it could have a positive impact on the neighborhood. And I just want to put that on the record that there's a valid reason within our code to approve this. But I do want to second what other members have said. We have to address the situation where people start construction without permits. And I don't know how, I mean, that's out of our area. It's in council's area and the building department's enforcement area. And maybe there's a penalty fee for applying for a permit after the construction is started, like quintuple the cost of the permit fee. There's got to be some sort of the city should look at a way to make people accountable for following our requirements.
So just speaking to that, I will tell you that it happens quite regularly, and our building officials are in the field every day and they're catching people on a regular basis, in contact with the building inspectors frequently, several times a week. And they are out there enforcing state of Michigan building codes, and we are catching people, unfortunately, quite often doing construction without permits. But when we do get them into the office to pull a permit, those fees are doubled as a penalty for starting work without a permit.
any other discussion, or are we ready for a motion? Chris?
I could make a
muted.
motion. if
Sorry,
No worries.
was this homeowner or contractor? Not that they don't have to follow it or anything, but usually I think the homeowner gets a little bit of a, maybe not a pass, but an eye roll at least, as opposed to a contractor who's should probably get hit harder. Because contractors are supposed to know that stuff. So I'm interested as whether this was homeowner or whether this was a contractor.
I think the applicant could answer that better than I could.
This was homeowner.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm prepared to make a motion if there's no further discussion.
I think we're ready. Thank you, Dave.
E1 ZBA 21-036, 1807 Pontiac Street, alteration to a non-conforming structure. The Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants relief from section 5.32.2, alteration to a non-conforming structure, in order to allow a second-story addition to the existing residence. The addition will not encroach further into the existing setbacks. The construction is to be completed per the submitted plans.
I have a motion from Dave. Do I have support?
Yes.
Thank you, Todd. Mike?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
yes,
Charlotte?
Yes.
Dave?
DeVarty, yes.
Julia?
yes,
Todd?
Yes.
I also vote yes. The request is granted. Moving on to petition ZBA 21-037-1214 Washtenaw Court. John?
Sach Chada, representing the property owners, is requesting relief from section 5.32.2, alteration to a non-conforming structure in order to reduce the 4-unit rental to a 3-unit rental with new habitable space in the basement. The structure currently contains a 2-bedroom unit and 3 1-bedroom units. The owners seek to renovate the entire structure to accommodate 3 units. The 2 upper levels will have 6 bedrooms and the new basement unit will have 5 bedrooms. The building footprint and setbacks will remain unchanged. The property is zoned R4C, multiple family residential. The subject property is located at the intersection of Washtenaw Court, Geddes Avenue, and Church Street at the edge of Central Campus. The home was built in 1910 and is approximately 2,336 square feet in size. The property is non-conforming for lot area, lot width, and the side and rear setbacks. The applicants are seeking to reduce the number of units from 4 to 3 while adding a new unit in the basement. The basement currently is non-habitable area, and the owners wish to convert this area to a 5-bedroom rental unit. The property is to undergo many upgrades to include washer and dryers in all units, stainless steel appliances, electric vehicle charging ports, expanded balconies, and energy efficient lighting. Life safety features are also to be installed, including fire and sound batting between floors and a fire suppression sprinkler system. We'll go to the PowerPoint presentation. The first slide is the zoning map. You see the highlighted parcel, subject property in the center. Campus is to the west. The next slide is the aerial map showing surrounding properties and existing conditions. The next slide is the zoomed in aerial photo of the property. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. And the next slide is the site plan on the left and the existing site plan on the right. Not a lot of change to the exteriors of the site. The next slides show the existing conditions of the first and second floor and the basement. The next slide shows the basement level plan. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a kitchen and living area. This is the unit number 2, the next slide, the main level plan. It's a 6-bedroom unit proposed. And the upper level unit 3, another 6-bedroom unit. The next slide shows the elevations of the property proposed and the physical improvements with the new fire escapes and expanded balconies. And the next slides are the photos I took at the inspection. You see the front of the facade currently in its current state. Just looking down on the east side of the elevation. The other elevation, you see the existing fire escapes. They're in pretty poor shape. And this is the rear of the property. More photos of the sides of the building. Rear of the building, a better picture of the existing fire escapes. And this is looking at the back of the property. Tight quarters with all the other surrounding properties. You can see how close they are in proximity to each other. And this is a conceptual photo that was submitted with the application and proposed finished product. That's all I have at this time. I can take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, John. Any questions? Dave?
John, is this in a parking exempt area or is there a requirement for parking spaces on this site?
There will be a requirement of
Like
4
4.5?
spaces, 4.5, yeah, it would be 5.
5. And I don't see can they stack 5 in that driveway?
It's
Is that
all,
something that we've looked at as a element to approving this?
well, that wouldn't be an element because it's all existing, non-conforming parking. And they're actually reducing the number of units and rather than adding.
But don't they have to comply if they're doing this it looks like a total gut and rehab, like just gutting the whole thing to reconfigure it all. I just don't see why we, at this time, require them to bring their parking into compliance. I'll save that for discussion.
All right.
Any other questions for John? Todd?
So this is something that hasn't quite come up before, but Dave's comment reminded me of this. I believe somewhere in the city ordinance is that the long term is that non-conforming structures have to be phased out. If you're not just doing a renovation, but essentially, as Dave put it, gutting the entire thing, spending, let's say, 90% of the fair market value and rehabbing it, that really defeats the purpose of a non-conforming structure. I mean, it's not, nobody enjoys playing the guillotine, but that's what non-conforming structures are designed to be slowly eased out. They can undergo renovation, but they can't undergo a complete gutting and redo and still be a non-conforming structure. I believe I'm correct on that. That seems to be the general law in the state. Maybe Ann Arbor's zoning ordinance is different. And I don't even know if it applies in this case because there are no dollar figures. But that's certainly a question for us. You know, do you just leave a thin shell and redo the entire thing? That's not really, we don't have enough information to go on that. But I think that is one of the purposes of the zoning ordinance is to get rid of non-conforming structures in the long term. Am I wrong about that?
No, they would have to exceed the appraised value by over 75% as determined by the building official.
Okay.
That's part of section 5.32.2 non-conforming structures.
Okay. I knew you would have the answer. No, that's a good answer. So it's not just the fair market value, but well over what the fair market value is.
The building official would, it comes into play a lot with a structure that's completely damaged by a natural act or fire or storm.
Right.
You know.
Right. Okay.
But
All
something
right.
like this, I'm sure if they did an evaluation, they could keep it under the 75% as determined by the building official. Because they're going to rehab the interior, they're not going to change, they're going to keep the roof, they're not going to, I bet you 50% of the structure remains intact.
Yeah. And you don't want to have the perverse incentive. Of course, this looks good because you're improving fire safety, you're upgrading the whole facility. The market has become much more competitive. All these are good things. On the other hand, there's a limit to what one can do to a non-conforming structure, I think, and essentially have an entirely new structure starting out a new lifespan that's non-conforming. So thank you. Thank you for the information, John.
Elizabeth?
Thanks. I just want to thank Todd for asking that question because the only thing I could remember as a comparison was I think we had a case where a screened-in porch was completely removed and they were trying to rebuild it, and and that general goal of eliminating non-conforming and not allowing them to be rebuilt once they cease to exist. That's interesting about the additional question about like the how much the value is increased. I appreciate knowing that.
Dave?
So John, if they cannot exceed, in terms of value or price, they cannot spend 75% of the current appraised value? Is that what it is?
Correct. Not appraised as determined by the building official.
So so the building official determines the value separate from our assessment office and says, yes or no, this building permit request is over or above that 75% line. We don't even look at that. We don't see those dollar numbers. So it's just some building official makes that determination independent of our giving the go-ahead to, this is a substantial increase in bedrooms without sufficient parking. And I just look askance at this, and I'm glad Todd raised the question about that aspect of the alteration to a non-conforming structure, because I don't see how this is viable by that standard.
They're increasing in bedrooms, but parking is not based on number of bedrooms. It's
I
based on
understand.
based on number of units. So,
But in reality, the demand for parking is based on the bedrooms. By our zoning code, it's based on the number of units. But even by reducing the number of units, they still do not meet I don't see how they meet. I'll ask the petitioner if they can show me 5 parking spaces. I don't see how they can on this, with this plan.
Todd?
So this brings up an additional question. And we've been talking about units and bedrooms, but it seems to me the more realistic standard is how many real bodies are going to be sleeping there at night and might want access to a car. Can you just arbitrarily say, I've got 12 bedrooms, but they're all 1 unit? I mean, how do you know what's in a unit?
you can't have more than 6 occupants per unit in an R4C zoned dwelling.
6 unrelated.
But
Correct.
if you have more than 1 unit in a building, what constitutes a unit? You could just decide that, you can't have 3 units. So you take your 20 people and say, well, I have 2 units of 10.
They couldn't do that because when they go through the rental housing inspection, the rental housing inspector would comes in and they do the inspection for the number of bedrooms per unit.
Okay, I'm sorry, John, I'm not really asking this question clear. What constitutes a unit? I mean, what?
It's a individual unit that stands alone on its own. It's a confined unit. It's one that has separated space between another unit. They have to have separation between each unit by separated walls and doors that are approved and inspected by the building and the rental housing departments.
Well, it doesn't, it doesn't really help my thinking tonight because I think of, a separate bedroom with a door has a wall between all the other bedrooms. So in theory, that would meet the articulated definition of a unit. I mean, I don't need to learn the precise definition, but it seems a little mushy, and there are some play options maybe. But, that's really sort of a aside, and we've got a full agenda, so I don't want to take more time in this, but I really don't understand the difference between a bedroom and a unit. Because if it's self-contained and separate, to me, that would be, if I'm paying big bucks to go to the university, which people have to do now, I want a separate bedroom with 1 bed where I can close the door and study or sleep by myself. And that's my unit.
Well, that's your bedroom within a unit, and it's deemed by ingress and egress accessibility between, and how do you access that unit through a front door. What you're kind of describing is where it would be a I'm trying to think of the term for that right now.
I don't want to take more time on it. That's just my hang up tonight, but I'm unclear between bedroom and unit, but we should just move on. So I don't want to clog up the agenda.
Any other questions for John? All right, if the petitioner is ready, you may begin your presentation. You will have 5 minutes.
Unmute video. thank you very much for taking the time to consider this project. I think there's a lot of interesting questions that came up, and I'll try to address them from my notes that I've taken. First, with regards to parking, I've kind of just inherited the property at the time of purchase that had 6 spots, that 6 cars for parking, basically along the property, along the, I guess, the west edge of the property, and then 2 in the back. I believe there are 5 spots which would meet the required amount. And in fact, we're going to take out the rear staircase in this picture. So in the remodel version of the property, the rear, there's a fire escape in the rear that's going to be removed. So it'll actually give a little bit more space back there. In my prepared notes, I had some comments that I want to talk about. The property, it's essentially in a student housing district. It's really meant for student rental. I think going back to, I think, Mr. Grant's comments about unit versus bedroom, to the extent that I made each bedroom a unit, it would be at a significant cost to me economically, because then I would have at most 3 bedrooms in that, right? So if each bedroom was a unit, the way that this is structured is in each unit, I can have up to 6 bedrooms per what John said. So it's really, I think, treating the unit with 6 bedrooms is much more, at least from a redevelopment purposes, it's much more economical, especially given the prices that are going on in Ann Arbor. If I were to treat each bedroom as a unit, I'd be shooting myself in the foot, I think, which would probably be what most people would think. But the maximum, and also in the rental component, not only is it the bedrooms, it also determines the occupancy. So if it's a very large or an especially large bedroom within a unit, you could have occupancy levels that are, I've seen 2, maybe even 3 people living in bedroom. But generally speaking, the rental certificates that I'm aware of, not only do they define the number of maximum bedrooms that you have also, but the number of maximum occupants subject to 6 unrelated parties. The property is very close to public transportation, the University of Michigan bus transportation systems. There's a number of stops along Church Street as well as Washtenaw, which I think is going to be a primary mode of transportation for a lot of these students. The other thing that I'm looking at to address the parking, which I think is good, and there's a lot of things that are changing in transportation, especially in campuses. One of the things I'm looking at is basically like a Zipcar type service where kids would have an app on their phone and they could basically rent a car that would be specific for the tenants living in that unit. I haven't made a final decision in it. I'm looking at this for another property as well. There's a company out of Ann Arbor that's doing that. There's a couple of properties that have started to adopt that technology in terms of being able to using the property that's on demand as opposed to having your own private vehicle, which I think in a city like Ann Arbor, that's going to go a long ways in addressing some of the concerns that I had when I was a kid and when I was a student there. And I think a lot of it, that's only gotten worse, I think, along the way. The cost of the renovation, and this is something that I think was brought up, about 75% of the market value, the appraised value. My goal is to make this really be a property that's not only comfortable and stylish and something that kids want to live in, but also, these are kids, and I want to make sure that it's a safe place for them. And for example, if I was constrained by that 75% number, and I'm not sure exactly where this is going to end up, the cost for the sprinkler system is probably going to be about $100,000, completely not required by the code, but just the tap fees alone are probably $30,000-$40,000 alone before I even get to the sprinkler system. So this is well above and beyond what I think the code require, which is what I'm proposing to do in this property. Ultimately, if I decide to sell the property, or if if me and my partners decide, I believe we'll get that money back. But in the interim, I think it'll be a much safer property and a much more comfortable property for people to live in. The house itself was built in 1910. I don't know all of the history of it. It looks like, just from my kind of novice judgment of it, it looks like there may have been an extension at some point that was added. But all of the electrical and the plumbing and the HVAC systems are really dated. And in fact, there was a storm that we had, and it washed out a significant portion of the rear wall, that needed significant repairs. So it was not it was in significant disrepair, and I think it, regardless of what we do or what I don't do in this, it requires work for us to bring this up to speed. And one of the goals that I have is to make this property, code compliant, along with we would have all new electrical, all new plumbing, central heating, and central AC as well in this property. And as I noted, I think there's a real pressure for housing prices in Ann Arbor, and I think one of the best ways to reduce the pricing is to increase the supply of housing, and I think projects like this go to do that, right? Increasing the number of bedrooms or increasing the number of units available for students to rent, I think is well worth the effort, and I think something that is probably on the top of mind for a lot of people. But again, just a quick summary, it's primarily a student housing location, a student housing property. It's very close to the Southview Business Corridor. Very significant improvements in safety and usage. And, I think all at a point where, I think kids are going to be well served by this. When I say kids, I mean, obviously the students at the university. So with that, I'll wrap it up.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? All right, seeing none, if there is anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, please call in now and press *9 to raise your hand. If you are connected via the Zoom link, please raise your hand via Zoom and staff will call on you. I will note while we wait, we did not receive any communication that I saw regarding this petition. Dave.
I do have one question. I was actually going to ask you about new air conditioning, central air, and you already said you're doing that. I'm assuming separate for each unit.
That's correct. That is correct. And that's one of the other things that defines the unit versus bedroom. Here, one central air is going to service one unit, so there'd be 3 central airs.
And I did want to, there was mention of electric vehicle charging, which is something the city is really working to encourage. I wanted to ask you about that because it's really, to me, a positive and notable thing that you're coming in with this very small one parcel, 3 units, and proposing electric vehicle charging availability. And I'd like to get you to tell me a little bit about that. I really think it's great if you're doing that. John made reference to that, so I'm interested in it.
Right. Yeah. I think because we're going to have a whole entirely new electrical systems, I think that we can do that. My goal is to really, along the west edge of the house, to have I don't think that all of them will be electrical. What I was thinking is maybe 2, possibly 3 of the parking spots would have electrical charging stations. The other thing is the particular company I'm looking at that provides the mobility is called Maven, I think, and it's out of Ann Arbor. They only do Teslas. I'm not sure why they only do Teslas, but I wish they had chosen a cheaper car. But in any event, because of that, if I want to have their service, which provides kind of this turnkey on-demand car rental services, I would have to have that electric charging station as well for those cars. So it's a combination of those 2 factors really that's driving my desire to have electrical. But in the end, there's so much investments going on. If you take a look at Ford or all of these large car companies, GM and the like, they're all basically forecasting their entire fleets are going to be electric. And I think as people, if people do continue to own cars, I'm not sure how long that's going to be, but as opposed to leasing them or some kind of an on-demand usage, I think this is going to become mandatory for people. And, over time, I think it'll be a competitive advantage as a landlord or someone that wants to lease properties to have that service. The other thing, and I'm just going to mention it, and this is not something I'm going to commit to, whereas everything I've said I've committed to, which I am looking at solar. Not sure about the cost of it. I would like to do solar energy in this. But again, this is one of those things I don't want to commit to. It's something that we're looking at, and I think it could be pretty optimal to have on the roof.
Did we have any callers, Kristen?
No callers.
All right. With that, we are in discussion. Chris?
But before we go any further, I want to
Yes,
address,
John.
so Todd and Dave, you're doing your best to challenge me tonight, and I'm here to answer your questions and alleviate your concerns. So in section 5.32.2, it says a non-conforming structure shall not be replaced after damage or deconstruction of the non-conforming structure if the estimated expense of reconstruction exceeds 75% of the appraised value as determined by the building official. So what that means is a non-conforming structure basically cannot be rebuilt if it's damaged or it is destroyed. So it doesn't say you can't remodel your home. So that's what this is. It's a remodel and it's an alteration. And so they can't expand their footprint, but they can remodel. And the other part, Dave, regarding parking lots and driveways, there's a special standard. It's 5.33.1, and it's non-conforming off-street parking. And it says non-conforming parking lots and driveways lawfully constructed prior to January 1st, 1986 may be maintained and continued as non-conforming uses. All parking lots or additions to existing parking lots legally constructed after January 1986 must meet the requirements of this chapter. So as long as this non-conforming parking lot remains the same, since it was in existence prior to 1986, it can remain. And I will say that since they're reducing the number of parking spaces from 6 to 5, I don't feel like this is really an issue.
Thank you, John. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks, John. That was good clarification. As per usual, you're doing outstanding work. The first thing that was explained to me when I joined the ZBA was that there's no bartering. This is not a barter situation. But I want also some perspective. We have a landowner here who is clearly going above and beyond, and I want our nonprofit religious organizations to hear this with regard to EV capacity. It's coming down the pike, folks, and this guy's ahead of the ball game, and he's not asking for much. But I would, since it's not a barter, I would also, with regard to perspective, I would definitely take the sprinklering and the EV capacity with any question of where his parking is, because he's got the University of Michigan on 3 sides of him, and he's, I think, about 150 feet from the U of M's terminus or terminal, their main bus system terminal there. It's across the street from the Diag. It doesn't get any better than this, people. He could do anything he wants to with his parking, as far as I'm concerned, because we're getting EV capacity and we're getting sprinklers. And I'll tell you what, the sprinklers alone are gonna, all they have to do is save one person's burn, not even their life. And they've, that's a big deal for me. So I support this soundly.
Elizabeth.
Thank you.
I want to reiterate a little bit of what Chris said. I'm always really excited to see a situation like this where we're expanding capacity for housing in locations like this. It's really helpful. It's really good. This is what it's all about. I mean, I don't, conversations around parking are tricky, but they should be less tricky in a situation like this where it is like right across from the bus station. And it's just so centrally located. So I feel really good about supporting this. I'm really glad to see somebody interested in doing quality development.
Dave.
I just want to say the petitioner answered my concerns about parking, and I'm confident that he's looked at this and is improving the situation with the removal of that rear fire escape. There's so many positive things about this. It's, to me, not only is it not a detrimental effect on the area, neighboring property, I think it has a positive impact on the entire community. And if anywhere in the city that we're looking to increase density, so more bedrooms, this is where we should be. I mean, this is where we should be doing it, not in single-family residential neighborhoods like the Old West Side. And I see so many positives to this. I feel very comfortable, despite my expressed concerns about the parking, which I think the petitioner has answered. I feel very comfortable supporting this.
Julia.
Living on the Old West Side, I'm actually comfortable increasing density over here. But, you know, on a alteration, you know, clearly, I'm sure this is going to pass, but I do want to just reiterate, this is where we should have density. This is where we don't need parking spaces. And it sounds like a really good project.
Mike.
Yeah, echoing all my fellow commissioners' points, my only problem with this is that it was not built while I was in school so I could live here, because I would want to, because it looks awesome. So yes, I'll be voting in favor of this.
All right, I think we're ready for a motion. Dave,
I could make the motion.
thank you.
E2 ZBA 21037, 1214 Washtenaw Court, alteration to a non-conforming structure. The Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants relief from section 5.32.2, alteration to a non-conforming structure, in order to allow new habitable space in the basement of an existing non-conforming rental structure. The new basement will allow for a 5-bedroom apartment. The building footprint and setbacks remain unchanged with no additional encroachments. The construction must comply with the submitted plans.
Thank you, Dave. I have a motion from Dave, support. Support from Chris, thank you. Todd,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
I also vote yes. Charlotte,
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Dave.
DeVarty, yes.
We have approval of the request. Moving on to petition ZBA 21-038.
Thank you, everyone.
430 South 4th Avenue. John?
Mustafa Ali, the property owner, is requesting relief from section 5.32.2, alteration to a non-conforming structure, in order to allow for new habitable space in the basement of an existing duplex rental home. The home has a 5-bedroom, 2-bath unit and a 6-bedroom, 2-bath unit. The applicant is seeking to add a 6th bedroom and egress window in the basement. The property is zoned R4C, multiple family residential. The subject property is located on the west side of South 4th Avenue, just north of Packard Street. The parcel is non-conforming for required lot area and side setbacks. The structure was built in 1901 and is 2,356 square feet in size. The property has 4 parking spaces at the rear of the lot and 2 driveways that are shared with the adjacent properties. On April 26, 2017, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted an alteration to a non-conforming structure to allow a 2-story addition to the rear of the non-conforming residence. Both approved stories were 20 by 16 feet in area for an overall addition of 640 square feet. The addition allowed for a bedroom and bathroom on each floor. The existing duplex is a registered rental with a total of 11 bedrooms. The R4C zoning allows for a total of 6 unrelated persons per unit according to the Unified Development Code, for a maximum occupancy of 12 occupants in the structure. The proposed 125 square foot basement, bedroom, and common area will increase the first floor unit to the 6-bedroom maximum. The first slide is the zoning map, shows the subject property highlighted in yellow in the center of your screen and just west on South 4th Avenue. The next slide is the area map showing surrounding neighborhoods and existing conditions. And the next slide is the zoomed in aerial photo of the subject property. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. And the next slide shows the basement demolition and proposed basement floor plan showing mechanical room, common area, and a bedroom, which would be attached to the part of the first floor unit. And that's the first floor plan of the first unit upstairs. The next slide are these photos that I took at my inspection. You see the existing subject property, the front of the house, entrance to the 2 units. This is the rear of the house. This is that rear addition that was constructed back in 2017. And you can see it from a different angle there, looking out towards South 4th Avenue. And then turning directly around, that's the rear yard and the existing conditions of the property, of the abutting property. That's all I have at this time, and I can take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, John. Any questions? All right, if the petitioner is ready, you may begin your presentation. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, Mustafa Ali, the property owner. I think David is joining us too. He's the architect on the project. This is an improvement to the property up to the new building code, alarm system, and like a general home improvement by making the building more energy efficient, adding up-to-date code insulation, and added safety to tenants by applying more fire protection. Big part of the addition is updating the older structure of the building inside the basement, also updating the heating system with a new furnace and a new central air, creating more space for more like updated ductwork in the basement for the whole unit, for the main lower unit. We are also improving the laundry area, make it finished. It's currently unfinished. We're updating the flooring for the unit. We are not increasing the footprint of the house. The footprint is staying the same. We're doing general painting over the house and newer appliances, basically improving the unit, and added any needed plumbing, electrical, and exterior updates and improvement to the building. There is sufficient parking, and also it's a few hundred feet away from Blake's Transit Center. I think I'm done. Thank you.
This is David Lewis. I'm the architect, as Mustafa mentioned. And yeah, I just want to reiterate that, we're not changing. There'll be no changes to the outside of the building at all, other than the new egress window, and no changes to the building other than just making the basement a habitable bedroom and maintaining the 2 units that it is already, and very minimal impact to anything in the neighborhood or any of the neighbors.
Right, thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner or his architect? No questions. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, please call in now and press *9 to raise your hand. If you are connected via the Zoom link, please raise your hand via Zoom and staff will call on you. I will note we did not receive any letters of support or objection regarding this petition.
No callers.
Thank you, Kristen. We are in discussion. Todd?
Moving right along, this is a similar pattern we've seen. This is an alteration to a non-conforming structure. The footprint is not changing, so I'll be voting yes on this.
Julia?
I just need to say I lived in this building in the 1980s. And it no longer, back then we were the only students on the block, and it was a very family block, and it seems to be a lot of students now, but I agree it's a good spot to have density. And it's the alteration with no objection, so sounds good.
Julia, doesn't this mean you have a conflict of interest and can't vote?
It's a different owner. If it was the old owner, I'd very much have a conflict of interest.
It's a sentimental conflict of interest.
Any other discussion? Are we ready for a motion?
I could go.
Thank you, Dave.
ZBA 21-038, 430 South 4th Avenue, alteration to a non-conforming structure. The Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants relief from section 5.32.2, alteration to a non-conforming structure in order to allow new habitable space in the basement of an existing non-conforming rental structure. The new basement will allow for a 6th bedroom to join the 5-bedroom unit on the first floor. The building footprint and setbacks remain unchanged with no additional encroachments. The construction must comply with the submitted plans.
Thank you, Dave. I have a motion from Dave. Support
Yes.
from Todd. Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yes.
Dave?
I've already, yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Charlotte?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Todd?
Yes.
Chris? The request is granted. Moving on to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to petition ZBA 21-039, 121 Longman Lane. John?
Aaron Herseth, property owner, is seeking a variance from table 5.17-1, single-family residential zoning district dimensions in order to construct a 2-car tandem garage. The new garage is proposed to be 14 feet from the rear lot line. The property is zoned R1C, single-family residential, and requires a minimum 30-foot rear setback. The new garage will meet the required 5-foot side yard setback. The subject property is located on the west side of Longman Lane, adjacent to Veterans Memorial Park and north of Jackson Avenue. The home was built in 1948 and is approximately 1,402 square feet in size. The applicant plans to demolish the existing carport and the storage room behind, the balcony above, and the detached shed in the rear yard. The owner will replace with a 14-foot, 6-inch wide by 38-foot long attached tandem garage that will meet the side setback but require a 16-foot variance. The attached garage will be 551 square feet in size. The first slide is the zoning map. You see the subject property highlighted in yellow in the center of your screen, and Betts Park to the west. And you see Longman Lane. Next slide is the neighborhood map showing existing conditions and surrounding properties. And the next slide is the zoomed in aerial photo. You can see the attached carport here and the shed in the back, and you'll see better photos of that coming up. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. And these next slides are the site plan that was submitted with the application, showing in red, remove the carport and shed. And the next slide shows the proposed footprint of the attached 2-car tandem garage. And just another footprint site plan showing that it's going to meet here's Longman Lane, the existing home, and then the attached proposed garage and the 5-foot side setback. And then this would require the variance for the rear yard, the 16-foot variance back here. The next slide is the photos that I took in my inspection of the property. You see the front of the house and the existing carport with the rooftop like deck above it. And just another angle view of that existing carport and the shed behind, or the attached storage area. This is the relationship between the two properties and the 5-foot setback, side setback. This is the underneath the carport, underneath the deck above, and the storage area. This is standing in the rear yard with my back to Veterans Park, and you see the rear facade of the home and the existing carport, storage area, and deck to be demolished. The existing shed that's being proposed to be demolished. And then looking back from the rear facade onto the adjacent property. That is all I have at this time, and I can take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, John. Todd.
Yes, 2 questions, John. First, the applicant complains that the zoning classification should be R1C, or rather R1D, imposing a 3-foot rear setback rather than R1C. I assume that's incorrect, but maybe you could explain that. And
Well, I don't want to speak for the applicant. They said that in their narrative that the size of the lot, they feel, since it's doesn't meet the R1C district, it's better suited to be in the R1D district. And then at that point, if it was in the R1D district, it would have a reduced setback requirements, 3 foot in the side and 20 in the rear.
okay, so second question, the last one. They're going to be parking their cars head in so that the second car will come in and the front bumper will come close to the rear bumper of the first car that's in the garage. That's my understanding. So then it raises the obvious question, well, if they just had a 1-car garage, they wouldn't need a variance. I mean, they obviously want 2 cars, which would be nice, but if they had 1 car, it looks like they wouldn't need a variance request at all. Their other car would have to be out in the snow, but they wouldn't need a variance. Am I correct in that assumption?
I would say you are correct in that assumption, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Chris.
So I'm a little lost as to what the discussion is about one zoning over the other. Are they asking, which we are not the purview, or we don't have the purview of a zoning change?
No,
that's just because I'm not clear on what the petitioner is discussing there.
Well, I mean, you can ask the petitioner that when we get to that section of the presentation. I believe what they're stating is the lot currently is 5,009 square feet. The R1C district requires a 7,200 square foot lot size, and the R1D district requires a 5,000 square foot lot size. So I believe the applicant, when they were filling out their application, part of their narrative stated that they feel like this neighborhood should be zoned R1D rather than R1C, making all the lots conforming rather than non-conforming.
I see.
They're not asking for a rezoning though.
Any other questions for John? Elizabeth, did you still have a question? Okay. All right, if the petitioner is ready, you may begin your presentation. You will have 5 minutes.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. To answer the questions, I will just start with the questions I'm not asking for a correction in the zoning classification. I just put that note that the house has been built in 1948, and for some reason, probably it has been just assigned as R1C. And John's point is where I came to that conclusion. The lot size is not meeting the required lot size for the R1C. R1C says over 7,200 square feet. I'm just below that. So for that reason, I thought it was R1D. The proposed improvement is going to allow me to just demolish the current carport and the shed, detached shed in the backyard. The current carport has studs at 4 feet from the neighbor's property. So according to R1D, it is okay because it requires only 3 feet setback, but R1C requires 5 feet setback. The proposed garage is going to bring that to the required setback for R1C, 5 feet setback from the neighbor's property. And my request to make this 2-car tandem garage is, if it would be 3 feet, probably 2 cars would be fitting side by side, but I'm not looking for any correction in the zoning. I'm okay to put it 5 feet from the neighbor's setback. The intention to put the 2-car tandem garage is also going to allow me to just remove the shed. I won't need additional shed in the rear backyard of the home, which will just improve and contribute the view of the park, my neighbor's view, and also the look of the street. So with this proposed improvement, I'm also going to be able to renew the facade of the home. By removing the shed on the backyard, right now, it is also closing a little bit of the view of my next door neighbor towards the park. So it's going to also open up the space and clear their view in that sense. If you have any questions, I can just answer. I think the project is simple, but if you have questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you. Todd?
Yes, Mr. Herseth. So your, my memory from the photos is your back fence neighbor, it's another residential property. Is that correct?
No, just my rear, my backside is the Veterans Park.
I'm sorry, what?
My backyard is looking towards the Veterans Park.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My
Okay.
left side, my both sides, I have the neighbors. So the current carport is that having that stud 4 feet away from my neighbor, and also the detached shed is kind of closing their view on that side towards the park. Just I will be able to build the new structure that is going to be complying with the setback requirements on the side, and it will open up the view for the for the neighbor.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, if there is anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, please call in now. If you are connected via the Zoom link, please raise your hand through Zoom and staff will call in.
No callers.
Thank you, Kristen. We are in discussion. Oh, I'll note quickly, we did not receive any communication regarding this petition. So with that, we are in discussion. Dave.
I have a question as I was thinking this through in the topography over there. John, could you pull up that picture looking towards Vets Park in the shed there?
That's looking towards the neighbor, and you see the shed, and then looking out, you see the shed to the left, and then out onto Vets Park.
And that fence is at Vets Park? That's the line to Vets Park?
Correct. That fence separates the two properties.
And is that the city's fence or the residence fence? I mean, I'm wondering if that continues along as part of the fencing for the park.
That is my fence.
Yeah, that's the,
Okay. Thank you.
Charlotte.
Yeah, thanks. I will not be voting for this, unfortunately, because I don't believe that it meets our variance determination criteria, just for a couple of reasons. I believe that this is self-imposed by constructing this. There's currently a one-car carport that is sufficient at the, I think, for that house at this time, and this is expanding that into the setback. I don't believe that the property is extraordinarily different than others throughout the city. And I also believe it's not the minimum necessary. So for those reasons, I will be voting no on this.
Thank you, Charlotte. Yeah, I'll just echo briefly that I agree with Charlotte's notes, and that unfortunately this doesn't meet several of the criteria we have to review against for variances. So I won't be supporting this either. Todd.
Yeah, along that line, my comment was a one-car garage wouldn't even need to be here. But I'm looking ahead to the last item on our agendas. I'm sure you folks did. And somewhat the same situation arises where the reason for setbacks, of course, are so you're not going to be annoying to your neighbor. But it's hard to believe, no matter how close the structure was to Vets Park, that anybody at Vets Park would be annoyed. So it sort of makes the purpose of a rear setback a little unusual. But nonetheless, I do agree with what Kristen said, that it doesn't meet a bunch of our criteria, and I will be voting no as well, actually.
Dave.
I just want to say I've been looking at our 5 criteria, and I can't, without a huge stretch, see even one of these that this request would meet to justify granting the request. I'm just a question for John. If this came in without changing the footprint, like but just going to where the carport is, would it even need to be an alteration to a non-conforming structure, or could it just come in under the existing zoning?
as long as if it met the 30-foot rear setback.
I'm not sure if it does currently.
It does. If you look at this, well, let me pull up the survey.
So the short answer is yes, it could come in and just do a one car without coming to the ZBA.
There's the survey right there. And
I'm not reading the numbers.
it shows the dashed line coming across the eave, or maybe it might encroach maybe a foot, but it's really close. It's hard to determine if that's an eave gutter, but it's either 29 or 30 feet.
Gotcha. But as I said, I don't see a single one of these standards to grant a variance that this proposal would meet. So even though I think it would be an improvement getting that shed out of there, I can't vote for it.
Mr. Herseth, we're in discussion, but if you do have a question or a comment, you can go ahead.
I mean, yeah, physically, one car garage will not require variance in that case. The main purpose is to improve the home with the view of the park. If it would have been assigned as R1D, R1D requires normally just 20 feet setback on the rear side. So it would normally allow me to make that 10 feet extension, which can allow me to use more space and would then justify the investment. Right now, the investment and construction costs that are assigned are significant amounts in Ann Arbor, and all the requirement to just make the foundation of the space and so on will not just justify me for doing it for one car garage with the existing structure. So I just want to be able to make this improvement together with everything to make to contribute to view of the neighborhood and increase the value of the neighborhood. But yeah, I mean, just one car garage is normally applicable there with the given space. Today, just the studs are not matching the 5 feet setback from the neighbors. It's at 4 feet. It's although a carport, open carport, but it's 4 feet away from the neighbor's property line. So it matches R1D, but not matching R1C. So would you give me a recommendation in that case? Later on, can I just apply for another request for change of the zoning, or would it stay like this?
If you want to request the change of zoning, that's not what this board does. That would go through Planning Commission and City Council.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Are we ready for a motion? Chris?
I'd make a motion.
Thank you, Chris.
And if I can, let's see, there we are. So item E4, ZBA 21-039, 121 Longman Lane. Based on the following findings in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants a 16-foot variance from Chapter 55, Unified Development Code Table 5.17-1, Single Family District Dimensions. The applicant is proposing to construct two-car tandem garage, 14 feet from the rear lot line. The garage is to be built per the submitted plans.
Thank you, Chris. We have a motion from Chris. Support?
Support.
Support from Julia. Thank you. Charlotte?
No.
Julia?
No.
Chris?
No.
I also vote no. Elizabeth?
No.
Dave?
DeVarty, no.
Todd?
No, sorry.
The request is denied. Moving on to petition ZBA 21-040-1301 Arborview Boulevard. John?
Rockman Design Build, representing the property owners, is requesting relief from section 5.32.2, alteration to a non-conforming structure, in order to construct a two-story addition to the south side of the existing home. The residence is non-conforming as it does not meet the average front setback on the eastern side of the property. The proposed addition will not encroach further into the average front setback. The property is zoned R1D, single-family residential. The subject property is located at the corner of Arborview Boulevard and Wesley Street in the Arborview neighborhood. The home was built in 1950 and is approximately 1,330 square feet in size. The applicants are seeking to construct a 490 square foot two-story addition that will include a new kitchen, dining room, and office on the first floor. The second floor will allow for a master bath and master closet for the existing master bedroom. The overall footprint of the addition is 215 square feet in area. Moving to the PowerPoint. First slide is the zoning map. You see the highlighted subject property and at the corner of Arborview and Wesley Street. Next slide is the neighborhood map showing surrounding properties and existing conditions. And the next slide is the zoomed in aerial photo. You'll see in the next coming slides, the proposed addition is to be here on the rear side of the existing home, not meeting this front setback along Wesley because the southern homes you can see are much further back, pulling the average back, and this is more forward than the average. The next slide is the survey of the property that was submitted with the application, and you can see what I just explained a little bit better as well. The relationship between the buildings and the properties to the south. Next slide is the setback study that was submitted. It's in your application and your packet, along with the site plan and the hatched area of the proposed two-story addition. Next slide shows the proposed first and second floors. The addition is going to include this kitchen and dining room and this office on the first floor, and then the master bath and master closet on the second. These are photos that were submitted with the application and the site plan. And these are the photos that I took at my inspection. You see the front of the house along facing Arbor View. And this is looking down Wesley Street, and you see the relationship of the properties to the south with the subject property and the detached garage in the back. This is looking directly at the rear of the house where the proposed addition is going to take place, running continuously along the same existing plane of the facade of the home. Looking at the detached garage and these properties to the south. And looking from the driveway onto the back of the subject property and all the existing conditions. That is all I have at this time, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John? All right, if the petitioner
Explained
is
it so
ready.
well, you don't have to have any questions.
Elizabeth, oh, she changed her mind.
I did. I changed my mind. If you said it, I blinked and missed it. When was the house built?
The house was built in 1950.
1950. Okay.
I guess I do have a question.
Oh, I spoke too soon.
Dave, go ahead.
So this is one of these corner lots with front setbacks on two sides. The what is that? Was that 24 feet existing, the setback? I'm not looking at the averaging, but the actual structure is set back 24 feet from the sidewalk. Was I reading that right?
Give me 1 second. I got to pull up. I didn't print it off. I've got it all on the slide. So, what does that average say?
No, I'm not the average. The actual existing.
Oh, okay. The actual existing showing 25 feet to the home and 24 feet to the garage.
Okay, and so the 24 was to the garage. What is the front setback in this zoning district without the averaging?
25 feet.
So it really complies with
The
the
district.
zoning, except for that
The
average.
homes along, yep, the homes along Wesley Street that are 33.5 feet.
And I note that those homes are at a higher elevation. There is a topography aspect to the relationship between this home and garage with the neighboring homes. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for John? All right, if the petitioner is ready, you may begin your presentation. You have 5 minutes.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me on this?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for taking our application. Myself, as well as Amy McNamara here as the architectural team for our client. John laid it all out. We have a corner lot in an R1D district, and we are 25 feet currently from the side street, which is what the front setback is. So the house complies with what's on the chart, but not the average. So the addition, as you saw in the drawings, is a small, tasteful addition on the back. We're trying to blend in with the neighborhood, increase the space for our clients. And so we're not encroaching any further into the setbacks than what the house currently does. The garage is a little bit further in, and it's up higher than the house as you start to go up the street towards the neighbors. So I don't think the neighbors from their homes really can even see the house itself, because I think the garage is screening them. We're pushing back, I believe, about 10 feet from the house. So it goes from a 24-foot deep house to a 34-foot deep house, still small on the lot. So I think we're trying to comply as best as we can with the code and doing all that we can to blend in with the neighbors. And I don't think there's any detrimental effect. The two immediate neighbors sent letters in saying they are in support of this, and I think they're in favor of the improvement to the house. So that's the two on Wesley Street, 409 and 411. So I think we're just trying to keep a small addition and have it blend in with the house. And the best way to do that is to continue the main wall as it is right now facing Wesley. I think that's what I have. Amy, if you have anything else, you can unmute and add in, please.
No, you pretty much wrapped it up. We are not encroaching within the existing setback at all. We have support from the neighbors, and we are doing our best to match the existing architectural style of the home, matching the existing siding and trim and general features of the home. So it will not really change that much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? All right, if there is anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, please call in now and press *9 to raise your hand. If you have connected via the Zoom link, please raise your hand via Zoom and staff will call on you. As the petitioner noted, we did receive 2 letters of support from this project, one from Jody Cosma at 411 Wesley Avenue and one from 409 Wesley Avenue as well.
There are no callers.
Thank you, Kristen. We are in discussion. Chris.
I'm going to be supporting this. They have the constraint of the corner lot and 2 front faces on their property, and they have neighborhood support. That seems like a no-brainer to me. Thank you.
Dave?
Even despite the fact that it's on a corner lot, the existing structure really complies with our zoning setback of 25 feet. And the averaging is with structures that are at a higher elevation, different elevation. So there is a topography that I think kind of mediates against having to really deal with that averaging aspect. This is an alteration, so we don't have to meet the strict standards of the variance requirements. It will have a positive effect, I believe, on the neighborhood, not a detrimental effect on the neighboring property, as demonstrated by the written support of 2 of the neighbors. And I will support this.
Any other discussion, or are we ready for a motion? Chris.
I'd make the motion.
Thank you.
Item E5 tonight, ZBA 21-040, 1301 Arborview Boulevard, alteration to a non-conforming structure. The Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants relief from section 5.32.2, alteration to a non-conforming structure in order to construct a 2-story addition to the south side of the home. The proposed addition will not encroach further into the average front setback. The addition is to be built per the submitted plans.
A motion from Chris, support.
Support.
Support from Charlotte. Thank you. Chris.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Charlotte.
Yes.
Dave.
DeVarty, yes.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
Julia.
Yes.
I also vote yes, the request is granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to petition ZBA 21-041,
Hey, Candace?
506 Miller Avenue. John?
Oh, before.
sorry, Todd.
Yeah, I was good. Can we have a 5-minute break? I think
Oh, certainly.
I'm probably not the only person that could use one. For a bunch of reasons we might not need to get into, but we'll come back refreshed for the last 2 items.
Sounds good. We will
Good.
recess briefly here for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to petition ZBA 21-041506 Miller Avenue.
We're missing Mike.
He's not coming back.
Yes, he left.
Okay,
He had
I'm
another
sorry.
commitment.
Was it something we said?
He had a prior commitment.
So go ahead, John, whenever you're ready.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
David Stanton, property owner, is seeking a variance from table 5.17-1, single-family residential district dimensions in order to construct a new attached one-car garage to the rear of the existing residence. The new 315 square foot garage is proposed to be 12 feet 10 inches from the rear lot line. The property is zoned R2A, two-family residential, and requires a minimum 20-foot rear yard setback for non-conforming lots. The subject property is located on the north side of Miller Avenue near the Miller Avenue and Chapin Street and Spring Streets intersections. The property is within a floodplain that is a small area in the southeast corner of the lot and does not impact or include the proposed development area. The home was built in 1915 and is approximately 1,344 square feet in size. The applicant plans to demolish the existing non-conforming carport and construct the one-story attached garage to the back of the home. The garage will meet the required 3-foot side setback requirement. The garage will be 14 feet in length and 21 feet 8 inches in width. The owners are also proposing a deck on top of the garage with access from the existing master bedroom. The first slide is the zoning map. You see the highlighted parcel in the center of your screen, and you see Miller Avenue, Chapin, and Spring Street intersections. The next slide is the neighborhood map showing surrounding properties and existing conditions. And the next slide is the zoomed in aerial photo of the property, and the existing non-conforming carport is right back here in the rear yard. This is the survey that was submitted with the application. And the next slide, you can probably see it better in your packet. You see the proposed site plan with the proposed attached one-car garage, and it's going to be 7 feet 2 inches from that rear lot line. Excuse me, 12 feet 10 inches from the rear lot line, requiring a 7-foot 2 inch variance. And this is the footprint of the garage. You see it right here, and then it says a deck above it. These are the elevations that were submitted with the application. You see how it attaches and its relationship with the residence. Following slides are the photos that I took on my inspection. You see the front facade of the house that faces Miller. This is the shared driveway with the adjacent house going down the driveway, and you see the front of the carport. And you see another photo of the existing carport. This is the rear facade of the home. And this is the rear facade of the home here, and the carport and the relationship of the home in the backyard. And this is more of the rear facade of the house and the neighbor's house looking out towards Miller. And you see more of the backyard, the existing carport in the back of the house. That's the end of my presentation. I will take any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, John. Todd, go ahead.
Yes, John, we often talk about matching footprints, but here it's a carport and what they're proposing an attached garage. Would it be fair to say that the proposed attached garage is going to be roughly where the existing carport footprint is? Are they roughly analogous, or is that not true?
No, I'll show it back on the, I'm going to show it on the survey. I'll go back to screen share. Hold on one second. Do you see, can you see that survey? Excuse me. You see the survey? The carport is in the kind of like the northeast corner of the property. And the new proposed garage is going to be in the back of the garage, so, or the house. So it's kind of rotating that all the way over. You're muted, Todd.
To ask the question a little better, if the carport were enclosed, would its square footage roughly match what they're proposing with a new enclosed garage? That's better said.
I think they're roughly the same size. That might be a better question for the applicant. They're probably very close.
And one last follow-up question, sorry. If the garage were going to be right where the carport is now, they would still need to apply for a variance because of the setback issue, even though it would not be attached.
That's correct. Yes, because the detached structure would require a 3-foot setback off side and rear lot lines.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for John? Dave?
So does it matter whether that carport is enclosed or not? If they did put, I mean, does it, right now, the carport, does it comply with existing zoning setbacks?
The existing carport?
Yes, the existing carport.
No, it does not. It's non-conforming, does not meet the setbacks.
So it's closer than the 3 feet on both the rear and the side.
That's correct. It's less than a foot.
Okay, on both.
Yes.
When does a structure become something that is a controlled structure? And the reason why I ask this is because I believe our last petitioner had an uncontrolled structure. It's a shed. Is it that it's not in the ground, or is it that it is? Are there other constraints? And when does a carport become something that the city looks at and says yes or no, or has aegis over even? Because I don't know that, and I think just it's mostly for my edification, but it might be an interesting point in this discussion.
So I'm not sure if I quite understand your question about controlled or uncontrolled, but
well, you can put a shed in, and it really doesn't matter. It's just a structure sitting on the ground.
It still needs to comply.
That shed, a shed or a carport is considered an accessory structure. And an accessory structure that is less than 200 square feet in size or footprint, if it's located in the rear yard, it only has to be 3 feet off the side and rear lot lines. Once you attach a structure to the principal structure, so this garage is going to be attached, it has to meet the same setbacks as the house.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's sort of the area that the information that I was looking for. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If they replace this carport with a garage with walls and everything, and had it 3 feet off both the rear and side yard, that would be an accessory structure that would comply with the zoning?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So if, let's say, instead of having an open carport, they just wanted an enclosed garage, but they did it as a detached structure and had it 3 feet off both the side and rear lot lines, that would comply with the zoning, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
But didn't you say it has to be less than 200 square feet?
Correct.
Is a garage less than 200 square feet?
Or no, it doesn't have to be less than 200 square feet. I'm sorry.
Wait, what's the size then?
The 200 square feet is the difference between a building permit and a zoning permit. I was thinking of a shed, but no, the garage. So this garage, there's one other requirement it would have to meet, and we've had it before. It wouldn't be able to take up more than 35% of that rear open space.
Okay.
Because if you exceeded that rear open space, let's just say that rear open space is 700 square feet or 1,000 square feet, he could have a 350 square foot garage. Anything over, if he wanted a 400 square foot garage, he'd be before the zoning board of appeals for a 50 square foot variance.
Gotcha.
But
Any
if this one car garage is less than the 35% rear open space requirement and it's 3 feet off the side and rear lot lines, then it would comply and he could get a permit for it.
That rear open space doesn't seem very large. Seems like it would.
No,
occupy quite
it's a small rear yard.
No.
Any other,
You're freezing up.
any other questions for John? All right, if the petitioner is ready, you may begin your presentation. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. My name is Zach Ostroff, and I drew up the plans. Essentially, we have multiple hardships here. The shape of the lot in the back is difficult, but it's a shared driveway. It's also kind of a fire hazard. It's, if you look at the site plan, I don't know if you can go back to the site plan from the surveyor, but there's an existing garage to the east, the property to the east, that's probably less than 5 feet away. If you look at the upper right corner. So, I mean, it's typically you need 10 feet in between structures. So the way it is right now, it is a fire hazard, and we're simply trying to clean up the yard to take out that carport and put. We're not really increasing the lot coverage. We're within what the lot coverage is. Roughly taking the same footprint that the existing carport is and adding it to the rear of the house and trying to make a more consistent look. The carport, whenever it was constructed, obviously wasn't part of the architecture of the existing house. And there's nothing about that carport existing that meets, it's like 3 inches off the lot line, the rear lot line, 2 feet off of the east lot line. And like I said, the most important issue, I think, is the fire hazard between, the existing carport and that neighbor's garage to the east.
Any questions for the petitioner? All right, if there is anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, please call in now and press *9. If you are connected via the Zoom link, please raise your hand via Zoom and staff will call on you. We did not receive any letters of communication regarding this petition in our packets or submitted via the website.
Julie Skyver, you'll have 3 minutes to address the ZBA.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Great. This is actually Julie Skyver Stanton. I'm actually David's wife. And one other thing that I wanted to add onto what Zach said in addition is that our shared driveway actually currently requires us to back out onto Miller Avenue, which I don't know if any of you have ever driven down Miller Avenue either way, but it's extremely busy and it's very dangerous to back out into the street. Especially with folks coming from from the other direction as well. So we have that. And the other thing that you may have noticed or not have noticed in the images that were taken, our neighbor actually uses our carport to do a 3-point turn so that he can drive out of the driveway. And, I think that obviously that's much safer to do. And what this is intended to enable us to do is basically utilize where we currently have that carport space to enable us to do a 3-point turn as well, so that we can drive forward and and understand what is coming at us from either direction and really be able to see traffic as well. So that's the other part of this that this solves. It's really a lot of additional safety issues that we've noticed as we've been living there.
All right, thank you. If there's anyone else who wishes to speak, please raise your hand.
No other participants.
Thank you, Kristen. We are in discussion. Todd, go ahead.
Well, I'm sticking my hand up. I'm having a hard time with this one. Ms. Skyver's comment I thought was a good one. This is a tougher standard, the variance, and I would feel better if they were simply putting a garage where the carport is. I understand now why they're not doing that, but I don't think it really meets the 5 criteria, even though there's a good reason and for doing this. And I do agree with Ms. Skyver that I would not want to have to back out onto Miller, or for that matter, Jackson Road, which houses do every day I had to go to work. But I'm sort of leaning against this. I'd like to know what my fellow ZBA members think about this. I'm sort of on the fence about it. Charlotte, maybe you can help enlighten me here.
Go ahead, Charlotte.
Yeah, I was just wondering, John, if you could pull up the proposed plan, site plan, please. I'm a little bit confused about the orientation on how the 1-car garage will make it more safe to pull out onto Miller there.
Yeah, does this aerial zoom might be better? So I'm not sure. Can you see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
So one shared driveway. You see the neighbor's vehicle back here?
Oh, okay.
So when they pull in, what Ms. Skyver is saying is they have to pull into her carport and back up to get to position to that position.
Okay.
And if they put their garage here, attach it, they'd have to pull in and turn in here. And when they back out, they'll be able to back out and then drive out straight forward. As of right now, they just pull straight in their carport and then back out. But this will enable them to kind of do a 3-point turn in the rear yard with.
And I would say, I'm sorry. I would say that the plan was that where the carport is right now, we would be able to utilize that space to back out of our garage and into where that carport space is now, because that would be obviously yard space at that point. So we would be able to pull out that direction versus pulling into the neighbor's driveway, because, you know, when he is parked there, we can't back into that driveway at all. And he's there most of the time because he's a retired gentleman. So he's really only in and out a couple hours a day.
Okay. Yeah. Besides that, I also am agreeing with Mr. Grant here that I am also leaning towards no due to the self-imposed criteria. But I would love to hear from other people on the board.
Yes, go ahead.
May I say something?
Is the shared driveway a self-imposed issue? Someone?
It seems to me it is. I mean, you buy it knowing.
This was built in when? 1915? You know, not everybody had a Model T back then. Shared driveways, you know, I mean, there might not even have been a driveway on this house. You're so close to town. But that's really one of the questions I have.
Dave, go ahead.
I'm looking at our standards that a variance has to meet. I can see 2 that we potentially meet. One is I don't believe this is a self-imposed practical difficulty because it's a shared driveway that's always been there. So it's not a self-imposed practical difficulty. The second thing is allowing the variance will result in substantial justice being done considering the public benefits of zoning ordinance and the practical difficulties that will be suffered by a failure to grant the variance. And I feel like the backing out onto Miller, or if we don't figure out a way to allow them to make use of their space to come out forward, I see as a substantial detriment to public safety, forcing them to continue backing out onto Miller. Miller's a busy street. It's not constantly busy like Jackson, but cars come speeding down there pretty quickly. And I would not want to be backing out onto Miller without, you really have to be careful looking both ways. So I see it that we meet those two standards. To me, that's enough. I'm not sure if there's another way to allow them to do this, to create a situation where they can do a 3-point turn and get out of there in a safe manner. If there is another way to do that, explain it to me. But I'm still a little on the fence here, but I do see that we meet a couple standards, including the public safety standard. The public health and safety standard is a big one for me.
I'll just, I guess, piggyback on some of those comments, Dave. I'm in kind of the same place. I'm having a really difficult time with this one because I agree that I don't think to the letter it meets all the standards. However, I think this one is unique. It has a lot of unique scenarios going for it that we don't usually see, with the shared driveway and the backing out onto a busy road and just the configuration of the site in general. So that kind of leans me a little bit towards supporting it more than I might be otherwise. I guess what I'm hung up on is a couple things. I have some concern. Yes, they're removing the carport, but it sounds like they're going to leave that as paved area essentially, or some kind of area that they can still drive on to back out. So I have some minor concerns about lot coverage and impervious area in general, because it seems like their entire yard is going to be filled with either structure or pavement. And then I wonder if there is a way that instead of, and I don't think it is necessarily better, but it's just a different option to put pavement where they're proposing this garage, so they have a space that they can do a 3-point turn in the backyard without having a structure there. Because obviously without the structure, they wouldn't need the variance just to put the pavement in.
Right.
Again, I don't know that that's necessarily a better solution. It's just a different option. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence with this one myself. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I don't know that I have anything new to say, but I'm feeling the same way about the uniqueness of the situation and like the combination of all of these factors. I can't imagine on a regular basis having to back out of Miller, and to realize that it's sort of like it's compounded by the shared driveway and just sort of the schedule that is sort of uncontrollable, like the neighbor you share that driveway with. I'm interested in hearing comments from others.
Todd, go ahead.
Yes, two things. I would feel a little better if they were just proposing to reconstruct a new carport next to their house, as opposed to an enclosed garage. That would be a more of a minimalist, something that's in keeping with the current arrangement. And I would like to note that the fifth criteria has always bothered me a little bit. Dave mentioned that, essentially people are proposing a variance request when they already live in the property. So they can never satisfy the fifth criteria because they're already living in the house. So it has to mean something a little more subtle than that. but I'm still on the fence. And if it were simply moving the carport, I would feel better than going with an enclosed garage. So that's where I am. You know, I wish what they were asking for would be a little different, but I'm sort of stuck on it.
Chris, go ahead.
I'd like to add, I guess, the obvious that no one stated, there is no on-street parking on this section of Miller because there's no bubbles. The street's narrow, and they're also, if I'm not too far off base, constrained during 8 months out of the year with bollards in the street too. So I kind of want to, you know, we've made our streets nice and safe, but you know, with bollards, but it's also probably made it more difficult for these folks in the process. I also want to remind us that health and safety, the fire issue is a really good point. You're parking a vehicle in there, and they kind of, you know, they tend to do that. They tend to cause things, and I think the fire department might have something to add to that. I hear everybody who's on the fence. I kind of want to look at some of the extenuating circumstances with regard to parking and speed, and it's only 25 there, but nonetheless, we all speed through there. I want to support this because I want to make people happy living downtown. And I think it's a place where something like this could happen. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Elizabeth, did you have another question? Or is your hand just up still from before?
My hand was up still from before, but then I realized I actually do have a question. Did we establish that we got no communication on this petition?
I did not see any, no.
All right, okay, thanks, that's all.
So nobody's griping.
Julia, go ahead.
I'm trying to see how this meets the criteria. Because I don't really get how it makes it easier to pull out. I'm in a shared driveway on Liberty, and I think people actually drive a little slower on Liberty than Miller. But it's the same kind of thing. So if the garage is going to be tucked up next to the house, it doesn't feel like doing that 3-point turn's any easier than doing the 3-point turn right now from the carport and then pulling parallel to the house where the garage is proposed and then going out that way. I don't see that that's particularly easier. I don't, you know, I kind of feel this fits a little bit in the criteria, and I guess it's not self-imposed, but when you buy, you know, I mean, I think it comes up with corner lots a lot that people feel like, you know, oh, I have this higher burden because I have the corner lot with a front, side, back, and the side is like a front also. But it's kind of like when you buy kind of an odd thing, you know, like they knew it was a shared driveway and they knew it was a teeny backyard. So I kind of feel a little bit stuck with that too.
Todd, go ahead.
Am I allowed to make 3 comments on one item? I don't know. I want to be breaking the rule here. But my sense is, you know, that I think the applicant has the burden of persuading us. And the sense that I'm having from my own internal brain at this hour and my other ZBA members is that we're not quite convinced. You know, it's a problem. I think I've got to vote no on this. I'm not saying, yeah, let's do it. That's a problem. So that's sort of where I am right now.
Mr. Ostroff, I see you've had your hand up. We're in discussion, so technically your
I'm
comment
sorry,
period
I
is
got
over.
that after, I got that after a few minutes. Sorry about that. Is it okay to speak now?
Yeah, Dave, quickly.
Okay. All right. Real quickly. I mean, going back to what Mr. Grant said a couple minutes ago, proposed carport won't work on this lot. We would need to be 10 feet between structures. So just based on a life safety issue, if you see the southern corner of that existing carport, It's barely 10 feet away from the house right now. So there's really nothing on that portion of it that meets, life safety, and the proximity to the neighbor's garage. Typically, you'd have a garage on, if this garage is on the east side of the property, the neighbor's garage would typically be on the east side of their property to give space in between. These garages are roughly 5 feet away. They're supposed to be at least 10 feet away. So all structures have to be 10 feet away. So we're cleaning up. The proposal is to clean up the lot with a more cohesive design, basically utilizing the same square footage and making it safer.
Todd.
Yeah, Mr. Ostroff, I guess I'm not an architect, but I see carports by houses all the time. I know with the history of garages in the 20s and 30s, they were always built detached because they thought that cars would be a big fire hazard. And then people said, no, you can have a garage next to the house. And now people put garages underneath and build over garages. So
Correct.
I'm just not sure I buy that argument. But
to Mr. Barrett's point, though, earlier he said that it's a carport or detached garage is considered an accessory structure. In between a primary structure and an accessory structure, you need to have 10 feet. So could it be an attached carport? It could be, but I mean, what's the difference? The size and the location would be the same. We're not increasing the square footage to make a 2-car garage where right now there's clearly just a 1-car, carport.
I just want to say from a zoning perspective, there's no requirement that structures have to be a minimum of 10 feet apart.
There's a fire code that they have to be 10 feet apart.
No, any structures that are less than 5 feet have to be fire rated. Structures can be less than 5 feet apart from each other, just as long as they're fire rated walls between them.
I don't think that's correct.
That is correct.
All right.
Is there any further discussion? Dave.
As I'm thinking about this, and I'm not sure who it was, so maybe Candace, maybe you suggested that maybe just put a paved area there where you're proposing the garage and get rid of the carport, and you've got your place to do a 3-point turn. And that meets my safety concerns, and it's a lot less. We don't have to give you a variance for that. I think I'm going to vote against this.
Any other discussion? We ready for a motion?
I can do the motion.
Dave, Chris, did you have a comment, or will you?
I was going to make the motion. That's fine. Go, Dave.
Okay.
Okay.
I did
Item E6 tonight is ZBA 21-041 506 Miller Avenue. Based on the following findings and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants a 7-foot 2-inch variance from Chapter 55 Unified Development Code Table 5.71-1 Single Family District Dimensions. The applicant is proposing to construct a 1-car attached garage 12 feet 10 inches from the rear lot line. The garage is to be built per the submitted plans.
Thank you, Chris. We have a motion from Chris. Support?
Support.
Thank you, Charlotte. Todd?
No, sorry.
Elizabeth?
No.
Chris?
No.
Charlotte?
No.
Dave?
DeVarty, no.
Julia?
No.
I also vote no. The request is denied. Moving on to petition ZBA 21-042 1455 Kelly Green Drive. John?
Tima Ozor, property owner, is seeking a variance from table 5.17-1, single-family residential district dimensions in order to construct a one-story addition to the rear of the existing home. The new 290 square foot addition containing a bedroom and bathroom is proposed to be 5.5 feet from the rear lot line. The property is zoned R1C, single-family residential, and requires a 30-foot rear yard setback. The home is currently 20 feet from the rear lot line. The subject property is located between Patricia Avenue and Abbott Elementary School in the Abbott neighborhood. The home was built in 1991 and is approximately 2,343 square feet in size. The owners are proposing to construct a 15-foot by 19-foot 4-inch bedroom addition that will provide the necessary living space to accommodate a family member with a medical condition. The home is currently 20 feet from the rear lot line, and the proposed addition will reduce that to 5 feet 6 inches, resulting in a 24.5 foot overall variance. The area of the proposed bedroom addition previously had a deck in the approximate location, which is no longer existing. Go to the PowerPoint. The first slide is the zoning map. You see the highlighted property in the center of your screen, backs up to Abbott Elementary, this large white parcel directly to the south and west of it. The next slide is the neighborhood map showing surrounding properties and existing conditions. The next slide is the zoomed in aerial photo of the existing property, and you see its relationship to the rear lot line. You can kind of see the old deck area and Abbott Elementary to the west. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. You see the proposed addition on the superimposed on the survey and the distance to the proposed distance to the rear lot line. The next slide is the elevation photos that were submitted with the application. And the next slide shows the first floor plan, the bedroom and the bathroom, and the foundation plan. The next slide shows a site plan. You see the existing home, Kelly Green Drive to the top, and the shaded area showing the proposed addition. The next slides are the photos I took at the inspection of the site. You see the front facade of the home facing Kelly Green Drive. This is the rear facade of the home where the proposed addition is to occur. This is the area where the proposed one bedroom, one bath addition is to be. You can see the former deck, which has already been demolished. You see some footings still there. This is looking from the residence onto Abbott Elementary and the rear lot line, the rear yard. Just another perspective from the rear yard of the proposed area where the addition's to be. Looking directly at the neighbors, you see the lot lines, the property stakes. And looking at the other property, the other neighbors in the other direction. That is all I have right now, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, John. Any questions? All right, if the petitioner is ready, you may begin your presentation. You will have 5 minutes.
All.
We can hear you.
Yes.
You can hear me. I said, good evening, all.
Good evening.
My name is Chima Ozo. I am applying for this or petitioning for this because my husband, who retired and was writing a book, has no ailments except for was diagnosed in 2014 of Parkinson's disease, and they said it was onset. And then 2017, he had a stroke. He wasn't diabetic, nothing. So this wasn't pre-planned. And he was at the hospital. He came back anyway. He's disabled now, totally paralyzed. And we had the house fortified with chairlift, and we were doing okay until it became worse. So we were paying everything out of pocket to have caregivers come. But when COVID hit, we decided to do it ourselves. And at my age, I retired from U of M in 2014. So that would date me, right? And our son, the youngest, who relocated, decided to quit his, well, no, they reorganized and he lost his job. He said, Mom, I'm not looking for a job, I'll help you. 2 years later, he's put his life on hold. He decided to go back to work and said he will help me pay for caregivers. We have sought every caregiver that would come and said, yes, we'll take the job. They will look at him. He's totally paralyzed. With Parkinson's, he can't even do anything. We feed him, we bathe him. So they would not take it. The last person that came, I was so happy. A man, strong. So I showed him, I said, come for onboarding. He came in and I showed him what I do, bringing him from upstairs through the chairlift, which is remotely controlled, to the electric chair, to downstairs, into another wheelchair. We have everything up and down, wheelchair up, wheelchair down. So, and then to the electric chair in the family room. This guy almost pushed me down when we were struggling to bring him down. So finally, he was to come. This was Friday. He came for onboarding. Saturday, he was to show up in the morning. He left on Friday and texted me and said, this is dangerous. I can't do it. If it were on the same floor, I would help you. So this has been everywhere I call. They would come, they would say, no, we can't do it. So this would help us for the time being. He didn't cause this on himself. This man is skinny, small. He had he wasn't diabetic. He wasn't, anyway, to cut the long story short, or high blood pressure, none. He was a retired college professor and was writing 2 books, exercising. So this hit us. This is not something we anticipated. Our bucket was for traveling, and we ended up with this. So we're just asking for help to help us take care of him, because each one of us, I might finish this and drop dead. Nobody is in control. The Bible tells me our times are in God's hands. So this is just a little thing that it's a lot, but something that would make our lives and his manageable at this time, so that we can take care of him on the same floor. I keep going back and forth, up and down, because we can't bring him down. So I will do this, but if we're on the same floor, we can wheel him into this electric chair, which is not difficult for him to see while I cook or do things. But this time I'm up and down, up and down. Our son started working 3 weeks ago. So I need help. If there's anything you guys could do to help me, please help me. If I had help, we're paying all this out of pocket, and yet we can't get help. $25 an hour. They will come and see him and say, oh, we'll take the job. And then when they try, it's not something that they could do. And they will just back out. So this is where I am at this moment. The only guy that said, well, if you were on the same floor, I would come. We have a Hoyer, but we can't use it. So that's why we are doing this. It's not out of wanting to have an extra. No, at this age, retired. No, I wouldn't. Neither would he have. So this is just on the basis of his disability. So we're requesting this on basis of disability. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Dave.
Ms. Ozor, have you worked at all with an architect to address this need?
Yes, we submitted, the architect submitted
The proposal?
yes, he would have been here, but his wife is sick. Sorry.
Did they consider doing anything with the attached garage to maybe build out that existing indoor space to create on that first level space that would work for you? Was that something they considered?
No, but that would not, I don't know that, I don't know. I wish he were here to explain that to you. That may not work for us because I don't know. I'm not an architect, but this would make it easier for that room to have a French door that we would wheel in and out. And there was a time I wanted to put to see if we could. The house was actually supposed to be 4 bedrooms, but we made it 5 with a bedroom attached to. They said they couldn't put water or bathroom there because it's not on that side of the, So I don't know. I'm not an architect. I wish he were here.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Elizabeth, go ahead.
Did anyone present the option for you to have this hearing delayed until your architect could speak on your behalf?
Unless we can call him to speak now, I don't know that his wife is sick. So I could call him. He actually offered to be with me, but things happen.
I guess what my question was, maybe this is a question for our city staff. Was it an option for this particular hearing to be rescheduled so that her architect could describe this in a meaningful way to us? That's what I'm asking. I'm not suggesting that you call your architect with his wife being ill. I guess I'm asking John maybe.
Always an option. I just was not aware that the architect would not be here. I didn't know that he wasn't available tonight. No, that information wasn't provided to me.
I'm sorry, John. Yes, I didn't provide that information. He actually offered to be here. It was out of my empathy for him that I.
Yep, that's understandable.
We're coming up into difficult outdoor exterior building season right now there's some snow on the ground, although it's melting. I'm wondering, I'd like to propose to table this until the January meeting when hopefully this architect could come and or they could consult with John about other options. I just don't see a path. Well, unless that's what I'd like to put on the table, if it's appropriate to table this to the January meeting.
We're not adding anything except for where our garage was. That's all we're doing. The garage was there, but instead of having a garage, we have something that will make his life easier for him to accommodate his disability. That's all we are asking for.
Well, you're replacing a deck.
Yes, the deck. Sorry, I'm
Not
sorry,
garage.
not garage.
The garage
Yeah,
is already.
Oh no! That was a
already
slip. Yeah, that was a
constructed.
slip of the tongue. Yeah, it's where the deck was. I'm sorry. Nothing else.
Decks are not enclosed structures that are part of the structure. So that's a
I
totally
understand
different
that.
thing in terms of our zoning requirements.
I understand that. This is out of ordinary, really. We never would have dreamt of doing this ever, but for this situation. And if his condition didn't deteriorate to where it is, we wouldn't have. We had the house fortified with chairlift, electric chairs, everything, up and down.
I'm going to make the motion and people could speak to it. I move that we table this to the January meeting. And if it has a second, we could speak to that.
So Todd, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a couple of things, and not only some of them are directly to David's motion. I'm not sure that pushing it off to January is going to fix this.
Right.
So, you know, Dr. Orzor is a healthcare professional. I used to be in executive management at an academic health center in Toledo. This situation, we could all be at this, but for critical health situations, it shows the enormous vicious holes in our healthcare system, no matter how much money you have. So that's really my first comment. It's just a terribly, it's a horrible situation. My second and third comments are sort of bizarre in relation to that. They're less serious, but I think given the narrow purview we have here, worth pointing out. Number one, we look at variances that run with the land. And while Dr. Orzor's personal situation is compelling, it is personal. And I don't know that we impose on future landowners or give future landowners of the property in the Abbott School District new boundaries regarding a variance. But what we're about really is not personal, even though we've been presented many times with very compelling healthcare situations. So that's my second comment. And my third comment is, of course, what it really is, there's a 30% setback requirement. They're now 20 feet. They want to go down to 5.5 feet. The kids playing in the Abbott playground aren't going to care. It's not as if you're going to a next door neighbor. So in one sense, discussing a rear setback on a large playground is sort of nonsensical. But I think all these things need to be, they're going through my mind. But I'm left, Dave, I think you're the one that said, looking at all the options, because there are many options for social services, for electric transports that slide up staircases, for not just home care, but a whole types of other types of healthcare professionals, which Dr. Orzor probably knows better than I do. At this point, having been out of the healthcare system for, over a quarter century, but it's a terrible situation. But I don't know that what we're about is really going to solve this horrible situation. And I think Dr. Orzor really, with other professionals, really needs to look at all the options. Because if we're looking at only what our narrow little crabbed task is, I don't know that this request meets our criteria. And here we are doing that in face of a horrible, tragic situation. So I don't know that we have an answer for it, bluntly. I think there are other solutions that are going to be a lot more important. And in the year it takes to get this thing done, it could be a very different situation. It may be too little, too late. We all would like to rescue her, but I don't think we can do that.
I will give a little bit of background on the subdivision or the development. Don't know a whole lot about it. Brett, the planning manager, and I did a lot of research. Some answers were provided and some weren't, but this was an old farm. And if you see on the screen, this portion that I'm highlighting here was developed as multifamily, and then the single families were down here on the other side. And all of them were non-conforming. All the properties all around the entire perimeter are all non-conforming. You see the home adjacent, the relationship to the rear lot line, all of them don't meet. So that is one factor you might want to consider. The other factor is there is a lot of neighborhood support, and then it also the effect it has adjacent with Abbott Elementary. And I'll just stop right there. Just wanted to bring a little bit more light to the situation.
Chris, did you have a question still?
I wanted to comment on something that went across the board. Right now, and this is a long-term thing. Mr. Grant is correct that this is going to run with the land. The reality is that they live in this house now, and I have a friend downstairs right now who is taking refuge for an hour, for 2 hours actually, because the caregivers for his wife are there. This is the first time he's had a chance to get out of his house in over a week, because they do not have, and they are people with means. Right now, in-house care is at a critical low. So I just want to set the tone on that. It's not something that you can just get, money or no. So that needs,
Respite care is enormously important and very difficult to get.
it's extremely. Anyway, yes, but I do agree that I'm not sure that our purview this evening, if we don't get to talk to the architect, is something that we can make better.
Yeah, I guess I'm inclined to support postponing this until January, just because I think there are some technical questions, some logistical questions, maybe trying to understand a little bit more how the architect came to this design and what other things may have been considered, that unfortunately we can't ask or get answers to those questions without the architect here. As Dave mentioned, we are coming up on winter, so the construction season becomes a lot more complicated. So I'm not sure that postponing this a month or 6 weeks, I guess, as it turns out, because our December meeting's off a little bit, will make a significant difference in when this is ultimately constructed. And again, it may still be that it doesn't meet the standards and we can't approve it, but I think I would at least like to get some information, some technical information, that before I make my decision. So to Dave's comment earlier, I guess I'm in support of postponing this until the January meeting, if there are others in support of that as well.
Can I just say that I'm not sure if I understood one of the comments. Did someone mention that the fact that they might have the opportunity to go into the garage and upfit the garage as space or not? Was that brought up?
I asked the petitioner if the architect had considered that, but the architect's not here to answer that.
I would just want to say that if that was an option, it would still require a variance. It'd just be a different variance, because they'd be eliminating their legal parking spaces. And we've had that same similar variance request on another property this year. But I just wanted to bring that up. It would just be a different variance.
Right. Gotcha.
Chris.
I guess I want to make the motion to table this. Are we at a point where I could do that?
Todd, did you have another question?
Yeah, it's an easy yes to push it off for a month, but I'm not really sure where that gets us, because I think really the problem is at some point somebody's needs become too enormous for a family to handle, and another solution is at hand. And what we're about here at the ZBA, I don't know that it's going to address the real problem. Sure, we can push it off to January, but I'm not sure what that really gets us. But if that's what people want to do, sure, I'll vote for us, but we'll be in the same spot in January. And Dr. Orzora's situation may be much worse or the same, unknowable.
But at the point we can't answer questions, that's our option. Is if there's too many questions left unanswerable at this point, it seems to me that the idea is that we can table this, perhaps to get better answers, or some answers at least. But right now we're treading water.
I've got a question. John, you had said that we've had neighborhood communications on this.
That's correct.
Candace, how many communications?
We
have
did. We received, I believe, 7 letters of support from neighboring properties. We have a
Yes.
letter of support from Lee Hubbard, a letter of support from Charlie Foster, letter of support from Shirley Harden, letter of support from Richard Corson and Diane Greenlee at 1415 Kelly Green Drive, letter of support from John A. Souter at 1515 Patricia Avenue, letter of support from Mary Watkins at 1315 Kelly Green Avenue, and letter of support from Marilyn Rotberg.
And I also spoke on the phone with the homeowners association president, who said they were in support of it as well. I will say all the neighbors were in support. Dr. Ozor, if the Zoning Board of Appeals chooses to postpone this, would you be willing to do that, or did you want to go through with this tonight, or did you want to have an opportunity for your architect to speak in the January 26th hearing?
I probably would prefer him speaking because I can't address the technical issues. I can only say my experience with what's going on.
So you would have no, so you would have no objection to a postponement?
Yeah, but it seems like somebody's saying that it doesn't make a difference. I don't know. That
Well,
without hearing from him to explain further what I couldn't provide, you know, would if it
I
wouldn't
just
make a
want to make sure that
difference.
you don't have any objections to a postponement.
No, I don't. I
Okay.
don't. Yeah.
I mean,
I wish I had stressed that he probably would have called in while he's taking care of his wife. But I was just empathetic of his situation as well. Yeah, because he offered. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Elizabeth, did you have a comment or a question?
Not a question. Actually, I think that I've heard what I need to hear. I was just going to sort of add on to what Todd said about we're not making a decision tonight that's going to instantaneously solve this problem, as really terrible as it is. And I'm sympathetic. My family had to install a chairlift for my father as well. Yeah, I'd like to move forward with voting on the postponement to January.
Correct. I believe Dave made a motion before for postponing this item to the January, is it the 26th meeting?
That's correct.
I'll support.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Dave,
I've already, yes.
Charlotte,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
I also vote yes. Todd,
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
Julia.
Yes.
All right, this item has been postponed to our January meeting.
I do want to say, thank you for the postponing vote. There are a number of unique circumstances with this, and I really need to think this through, and having that month is going to help, and having the input from
2 months.
We'll have 2 months, month and a half.
Thank you.
Thank you for the support on the postponement.
All right, moving on to, we have no unfinished business, new business. We have the 2022 Zoning Board of Appeals calendar. Are there any, I guess, questions about the calendar? Any discussion? It appears to follow the standard fourth Wednesday of the month, with the exception of, oh wait, this one's different. What am I looking at here? Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the submittals.
We included one that has been the way we've been doing it for the past couple of years, with no meeting to accommodate for like around Thanksgiving and Christmas with scheduling. And then we included one that's a more standard schedule. With the way some of the holidays fall next year, we may be able to meet that way, but it is up to the board.
I haven't seen the schedule, but that far ahead, I'm sure it will be fine. If I'm around, we'll be fine.
So I guess the question is, do we want to maintain our current fourth Wednesday of the month, meet every month, and then just adjust the meetings for, I think it's just November that gets pushed out a week because of the Thanksgiving holiday, or maintain what we've done, I think, the last 2 or 3 years where we've just combined the November and December meetings into the first week of December and gone with 11 meetings for the year.
What does John think is depriving applicants of a monthly meeting problematic at the end of the year? John, what's been your experience? When we had a full agenda today, is it unfair to applicants? Maybe we should have 2 meetings, one in November and one in December. What do you think?
Originally we did it just because it was there was some difficulty with holidays and everyone being around on the same thing, and so it kind of worked out where we combined the 2 months, and we missed Thanksgiving. It was after Thanksgiving. It was before the Christmas holiday, so I thought it kind of worked out. But we've been lucky the last couple of years. We didn't have a full agenda like we have tonight. I don't think we had 7 cases, and I could have had 8 tonight. So it does make for a long meeting the first week of December. It's just whether or not you're willing to do that, continue that, or if there's conflicts or with holidays, things like that. It's kind of, Chris and I decided we'd give the option to you guys, see which one you prefer.
I vaguely remember there being an issue in a few years past before we switched to this combined meeting with scheduling the meeting room. I think we were coming up with conflicts with Planning Commission and City Council and some of the other boards and commissions that needed the meeting space because everybody was jostling their meetings around to accommodate the holidays. So I don't know if that's going to continue to be an issue or how some of the different boards and commissions are going to function moving forward, but I guess just something to keep in mind too, because I think there were a few times where we actually met in alternate locations because the council chambers were being used for another meeting.
If anyone cares about my opinion, I like how we're doing it now. Because like after tonight, we won't have another meeting basically for 2 months. And so it gives everyone a good break, and you enjoy the holiday season. You don't have to worry about all this. We literally have 7 weeks plus until the next meeting, which I like. It's kind of nice.
We can all be refreshed for the next year of ZBA fun.
Exactly.
And John should get a break. So that's an argument in favor. And Chris,
I guess I'd make a motion for leaving it the way it is then. May I make a motion?
So we're going with the second option, I guess, that was presented with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 scheduled meeting dates.
Support.
Okay, so Chris has made a motion that we approve that calendar. Support?
Support.
From Charlotte. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have adopted our 2022 meeting calendar. Moving on to communications, we have discussed all of the communications that we received. Public comment. If there is anyone from the public who wishes to comment or address the ZBA regarding any items, please call in now. If you are using the Zoom link to watch tonight's meeting, please raise your hand through Zoom and staff will call on you.
No callers.
Thank you, Kristen. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion from Chris, support? From Charlotte?
I wanted to say
sorry,
something.
Chris. Oh, sorry. I got excited.
I am on the 19th of December, I will be doing the first part of my graduating. I will have a graduate certificate in historic preservation from Eastern. And in April, keeping them crossed, if everything goes well, I will then graduate with my master's in urban planning. And
Excellent.
but I wanted to tell you that since we're not going to see anybody until the end of January, that that's the case. So huzzah for me.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I would like to say one other thing is I will be giving everyone, sending more emails and updates regarding the meeting, our next meeting, which is in January, which will be at City Hall and in person. So just wanted everyone to be aware of that.
So,
Please bring a mask.
Yes.
We'll be required to wear a mask, and it'll be just like the old ways that we used to do things. Julia, I know you never did, but it is on second floor in the city council chambers, and we will all be at sitting behind the dais. And
There's been a fair amount of back and forth, but I just want to let everybody know I'm really happy to be there. Okay.
So there will be more information forthcoming in the next couple weeks about that.
I have a question.
Todd, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I assume since we're in person, that if we're out of town for some other reason, we would not be able to tie in via Zoom. We would just have to be absent.
You missed all that?
That's correct.
Okay. Just asking.
I just want to say my wife is a retired director of the health department. I advocate vaccinations. I advocate mandatory vaccinations for public employees. I'm fully vaccinated and have a booster. I just have a question. Will everybody at the meeting be required to be vaccinated?
I've had a booster. I've
Including
got 3
petitioners?
shots.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure about petitioners, but staff, yes.
And there will be a link provided shortly in order for you to go on and provide that information to the city.
I think that came out today, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think Mike Daniels already gone ahead and done that. He told me about it. So if you don't know where that is, I'll be sending that link out shortly as well. So
very good.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any other comment? Chris?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Fabulous. Support from Charlotte. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice
Have a great holiday.
Happy
holidays.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.